There's a real crisis brewing in regard to the military recruiting here in the United States. And here to explain the crisis and why it poses such a concern is CEO of VETCOMM.us, Kate Monroe. Kate, good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
So how come people aren't enlisting like they used to?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. You know, there are not as many people to enlist. The percentage of people who actually want to enlist is down to all the way 9% of people that are in the right age group. Giant lack of patriotism. I think there's also, you have to look at who usually enlists, right? What is the demographic of people that go in, certainly on the enlisted side? They're looking at all of the wokeness in certain services and saying, that's not for me. I'm going to go ahead and go to a trade school or do something else useful with my time. It's lost its esprit de corps. It's lost a lot of its benefit to people. So,
is there any particular branch of the military that's experiencing less recruitment than another?
The Marine Corps, you know, I did a lot of research for this piece, and the Marine Corps is cut apart from the other services. And this is not a knock on other services. I serve veterans and active duty from all services, but you never hear a Marine say, I was in the military. They say, I was in the Marine Corps. And so I think because of the esprit de corps of the Marine Corps, it's its own thing, it's its own entity, it has its own brand, its own identity. They don't have that recruiting crisis. There's a heavy lineage passed down from generation to generation. Even though it's the least paid service, it's hardest conditions, still you find them recruiting, while the Army is having a very, very difficult time, as well as the Navy.
You talk about the esprit de corps. You and I can remember September 11th, 2001, yes, very clearly. In the aftermath of the attacks on the World Trade Centers and elsewhere in D.C. and Pennsylvania, there was a major flood of people who said, I want to serve.
Correct.
And now, and just the contrast now, I mean, it was like, you remember you couldn't buy an American flag for like a month.
Yep.
They were all gone and they were waving everywhere. But your contrast, I think about that time in our history, and to quote you, the wokeism that's going on in the military now.
It's not just the wokeism in the military. I mean, you have to say all of this is by design. It's not just a recruiting problem. If you look at everything that's going on in the country, everything has turned woke. And this next generation, they came up in that. So that's what they know. You know what you know. I came up in the Reagan era. Totally different, very patriotic time. I was young in the military during 9/11. It was a very different time. We don't have that now. We have made it unattractive for people to want to serve in police, to be nurses, to be in the military, in the totality of all those.
And you think, what can be done?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to be done is we have to redesign the way in which we recruit. Everybody could take a little bit of book out of the Marine Corps recruiting. They held the line. We have not retracted and said, oh, it's easier now. No, it's still as hard as it was. Yeah. And this service has stayed in its state, while the Navy has slipped back and there's much more wokeism there. So I think they need to abandon all of that wokeism. It actually not only hurts recruiting, it actually lessens the effectiveness and the power and the might of our military. So that's one thing. Two, they move people too often. You can't move every year or two. It's too hard on people's families. That's why they get out. And then they tell their kids, hey, don't go in. It's not good for your family. We can also, I've been working, I talked to Ted Cruz about this actually, trying to work on legislation to stop assault in the military from happening. Forget adjudicating it later, stop it from happening. I was assaulted. If I had had a daughter, my advice to her might have been, maybe not certain services, you have a high likelihood of ending up getting assaulted. So all those things, and I'm also working on a bill where you can use your GI Bill to start a business. This next generation doesn't want to go to college. They want to be entrepreneurial. They want to be CEOs today. But they certainly want to be entrepreneurial, and if they could use that money, I talked to the head of naval recruiting, and he said that would really help them in recruiting. So there are solutions out there, but we have to be willing to do something, because there is no bench strength left. We already called all them up. There's nobody coming to serve. That's the crisis we face. It's not a recruiting crisis. It's a safety for our country crisis.
All right, Kate Monroe.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Appreciate all your research and sharing with us.